George the Tech.
Hey, everybody. George Whittam here. How's it going? Thanks for your patience as we get things rocking and rolling. Almost on time. Pretty close. Um, we've got a heck of a knowledge-packed presentation. There is a lot to learn. And as I'm reading your Q&As that are already coming in, there might need to be a part two of this webinar because you guys have some good questions. Now, we're going to cover a lot of your questions in the course of this presentation because, well, I have been setting these up for you voice actor folks for, well, since it was literally launched on the market. The first one I set up was for Howard Kogan, Jack FM voice. I think it was 2011, December, January 2012. And I've been doing that ever since. So I know pretty much every scenario most of you will run into, but still there's going to be some unique cases for some of you. And we'll talk a little bit about what I can address today and what might have to be addressed either privately or in a special edition for some of the more advanced users out there. But anyway, this is all about the Universal Audio Apollo. Let's get into it. Okay, so like I said, we're going to cover a lot of stuff. So here's everything we're going to be covering. Starting with the use cases. What are the actual use cases that really justify having an Apollo in a voiceover home studio, right? Because there's a lot of reasons why you really don't need one. I'll talk about why you would consider it. So many of you probably already own one, but if you're thinking of getting one, or if you just got it and you don't know why, because you bought it because someone told you should buy it, or you heard from a voiceover colleague that said, you got to have this. This is what I use in my studio. We'll cover that. We're going to compare different Apollo hardware systems that are out there because there's quite a few different hardware devices that they make now. We'll talk about USB only, why for Windows users, why I recommend only using their USB equipped interfaces. Installing the hardware on your system and the console software. I'm demonstrating today, obviously, on a Mac. So most everything I'm going to be doing will be relevant, but just you'll be seeing a Mac. I'm going to talk about the Apollo Silicon security issues thing that some of you are going to run into when you install this on a Silicon Mac. That means a Mac that's running the M1 or now the M2 processor. Windows versus Mac. Each of them has their own quirks, believe it or not. Neither of them are completely pain-free. Windows is certainly more painful than the Mac side, but they each have their quirks. Well, then we'll do a little hardware orientation. I'm going to show you some things on my unit, which is an older Apollo Twin Mark I, and I have some video clips that I did on another studio location, training another group of people on how to use a more modern, in this case, Twin X, that many of you may have. And it actually kind of overlaps with the Mark II as well. So if you have a Mark II Apollo, the Twin X and the Mark II are extremely similar in pretty much all ways. Console orientation, showing you how the console works. What's all the stuff in that window and the settings. We're going to get to the settings. And then, of course, the matrix. Entering the matrix. Yes, we are. Then I'll get into the UAD plugins, what you get for free, what most of you should have for free, how to authorize them, how to add them when it's a demo, and how to buy them if you need to. Then we'll talk about signal routing for recording from two different microphones, an easy way to switch between mic channel 1 and channel 2. It's not obvious in any way. Like many things in the Apollo universe, this was designed for music, multi-track music production. We're trying to use it in a more like a broadcaster situation. So we're trying to actually use it more like a mic preamp mixer type situation, not a multi-track. So we're shoehorning a different use case into the Apollo. And that's why I'm teaching this, because it's such a unique thing. And the Apollo in no way comes pre-configured for your normal use case. Console sessions, how you would save them and what actually information is and not saved in console sessions. Controlling and monitoring, which is a really big part of using the Apollo and probably one of the more confounding things to many people. Sending playback to the client. depending on what they're using. So if it's a web browser, Chrome-based system, or a Zoom-based system, which has its own quirks, or using it with Source Connect, we'll be talking about how we send audio to and from a live streaming software where they're hearing you real time or even recording you. And then, of course, Q&A. I have no idea how much time we'll have for Q&A. I don't really know how long it'll take to go through this whole presentation. And I don't know how many questions we'll have. So my pledge to you is to get through as many as possible, and then we'll have a hard stop at 15 minutes after the hour, okay? So we'll do our best. First of all, let's talk about the different Apollo hardware systems that are available on the market. Some of these are what are currently in production. Some of these are legacy products that are not in production, but all of them are viable for you. But there's some that are better than others, I think. So starting off with the most affordable entry point for a lineup of Apollo hardware, and that's the Apollo Solo, which was called the Arrow for a minute. I don't know. They started with the Arrow, then they changed it to the Solo. This is their most basic interface. It just simply uses a single Thunderbolt 3 cable to actually power and run the unit, right? So it's not like it doesn't have a big old power supply that you have to plug in and be concerned with. So it certainly makes this unit way more friendly for travel use. And actually what I can do is actually throw this browser page on this screen, and you can see it. There we go. So this is the Apollo Solo. So they call it a Solo. It's confusing, but it actually does have 2 microphone preamps, despite the name. What Solo is referring to, and anywhere you see the word Solo, Duo, Quad, they're actually referring to the number of DSP chips inside, not the number of channels you can record from, okay? So even the Solo has 2 channels, can record 2 mics. And for the vast majority of you, the Solo is really all you need. The additional ins and outs and power that you get with the twins and the others that go up the food chain are almost always unnecessary for voiceover. But as you'll see, the Solo has on the rear just a single Thunderbolt 3 connector to power it, outputs to speakers and mic in jacks. That's all you get. Okay. Also, let's rearrange here a little bit. Ones that are probably more common to folks like that have been using this thing for quite a while, you're probably going to have one of the older silver-faced units called the Apollo Twin, or just Apollo Twin full stop. That could be the Solo edition or the Duo edition. That's actually what I have sitting in my studio today. So you'll see it occasionally when I switch cameras. You'll actually see my, can we do this? Yes. The Apollo Twin. Now this is the Apollo Twin Mark 1, or the first edition Duo, meaning it has 2 DSP chips inside. All that means is Duo means more DSP, aka more processing, more plugins can be used simultaneously before it runs out of resources. So that's what this one happens to be. Let me see if I can make it more legible. There we go. That's a laser read. Apollo Twin. Again, that's if you're thinking of getting into this whole Apollo business, and this is the cheapest one to buy. Go look on reverb.com and you'll see tons of Mark 1s. Well, you might see tons of them. It's hard to say exactly how many Mark 1s are going to be available, but you might see, like, here's an example. Here's an Apollo Twin Duo, exactly the same that I have right here. And you can get one of these for, here's an example, one for $500. Not to say you couldn't find one cheaper than that on eBay, but Reverb tends to be a safe place to buy stuff. Anyway, so that's kind of your entry point. You're either looking at the Apollo Twin Duo Thunderbolt 2 interface or the Apollo Solo Thunderbolt 3 interface. And you can actually use the Solo, actually can be used on Thunderbolt 2 with adapters, and you need a Thunderbolt hub, which has power. So it's a kludge, but it can be made to work.